general tips or tricks that you share with these two. That's how Amazon started. Your work experience in the US,
working as a business analyst.
do you remember any resources that you leveraged to?
I always keep in mind the audience that I'm going to be showing my dashboard.
Do not use pie charts.
So it has its own usage.
Generative AI now becoming a thing, and they have those 6 months to potentially analyst roles. Like, should they be looking at that type of stuff?
Skills that you develop throughout that journey, throughout this conversation that we're having right now. What are the skills that you picked up?
Switching from consumer to creator.
Welcome to the Ready Set Do podcast, where we learn from journeys of not experts who are just 2 steps ahead of us. I'm Naman Pandey, and in this episode, my guest is Sohan Sethi. Sohan is a senior business analyst working out of Chicago and has many years of experience in this field. Perhaps more importantly, Sohan has been top data visualization voice on LinkedIn multiple times now. We discuss what brought him to the US to study business analytics in particular, which then dovetails into a discussion on business analysts as a whole, going over some critical technology as well as soft skills that can really set you apart in your career as a business analyst. As data visualization in particular is a core aspect of most business analyst roles, the latter half of this discussion is a deep dive on best practices for the same. We go over what makes a good dashboard, how to go about making a dashboard when somebody gives you a requirement for the same, as well as any tools and technologies that can get you really far in this field. Sohan also describes a unique 3-step framework that anyone can use while building out dashboards. Finally, we go over how Sohan came to be top voice on LinkedIn and exactly what that entails, and top it all off with a brief discussion on generative AI and its influence with not just data visualization tools, but with business analyst roles as a whole. This discussion is for anyone who aspires to be a business analyst, is a current business analyst, or has any interest in building data visuals. In keeping with our theme of learning from somebody that's just 2 steps ahead of us instead of an expert, I'd like to emphasize that this discussion centers on Sohan's unique experiences as a data analyst and a builder of data visualization dashboards. While there are plenty of in-detail expert resources available online, my goal with this episode is simply to get you to a point where you can begin to ascertain for yourself if the business analyst role is right for you and what exactly it entails. Oh, and before I forget, stay tuned until the end of this episode for a weird how the turntables moment where Sohan becomes host and asks me a question around, well, you'll have to wait and see. This is the Ready Set Do podcast, and to support it, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And now, without any further ado, my conversation with
Sohan, welcome, and thank you so much for making the trip north to Lincoln Park to sit with me here today to talk about all the amazing things we're going to cover.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure, and I didn't really mind stepping out. And we have a holiday as well in the middle of the week, which feels even better.
I wanted to kind of kickstart here by going over really some of the advice that you share with international students around the job search. The context for that for our listeners is that Sohan is top data visualization voice on LinkedIn. And because of that, and I'm sure because of his general willingness to help, he has a lot of students naturally reach out asking for recommendations, suggestions. So yeah, my first question to you is what are some general tips or tricks that you share with these students, especially in times like the ones we are in right now, which I'm sure you're aware it's so hard. You keep hearing these horror stories of, like 500 applications, no interview callbacks even.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's actually the best question that we could have ever started with. I do get a ton of questions. For example, if someone reached out to me just last week, this specific person, she applied to more than 10,000 job applications. And unfortunately, it's very heartbreaking for me. She hasn't good, fair enough. Skill set, a good profile. Yeah, just to answer that question, I would actually want to share my experience of how I did that, navigated that. So I myself applied for almost 3,000 job applications, within a span of 10 months, 11 months. And so how I started it was basically, just getting to see what my seniors were doing, how they were approaching their search, and just learning their best practices. So that would be tailoring the resume, tailoring the cover letter, and just ramping up your LinkedIn profile. The next thing would be just to try applying and see how your resume and your cover letter is doing. And based upon that, right, if the response is going well enough, things are working for you. If it is not, definitely you could take something around. And that's how I started as well. Like within the first couple of months, I did not have any for that myself. After putting like 80 to 100 applications, it was time that I realized, okay, I need to take something over here. And soon enough, it was just like really like going to people's LinkedIn profile who are in the kind of company that I want to work at and just figuring out, okay, like what is the profile that that person is having and how can I do better, maybe tailor my resume that way. Like the times are really tough, but it is actually the more you keep on applying, you will realize that okay, this is not a short-term game, it's not a 100-meter run, but a marathon. Maybe not the dream opportunity that you want, but the right opportunity that is out there for you, you will have it.
That's really helpful, Sohan. I really also liked your call out about the tech stack, and we'll be diving into that suite of business analyst tools and skills in just a few here. But before we do that, I guess I was curious to learn um, what is it about tracking applications that's actually beneficial. So I personally just anecdotally started. I think like I was told that you should be doing this. It's helpful. Blah blah. I was like, sure, I'll do it. I used to do it like 1 day, 2 days, and then it would just like fall off because I was so busy actually doing all the applications that I would miss maybe 3 or 4. And then I was like, oh, I guess it's gone now. What's the point of resuming from this point? So I'm very curious to learn what is it exactly about the tracking that helps students, or really the reason why you recommend that so much.
Absolutely. That's a great question, first and foremost. I think the logical opinion on this one would be that, okay, you have like a track of the companies that you have applied to, so that maybe you're not applying to the same company over and over again. And then you are diversifying your options, you are putting your eggs in different baskets. So I guess that could be the logical option. What specifically worked for me now was it gives me accountability. It makes me feel that okay, I am like so. I mentioned that I put the day column on the leftmost side the first day. So every day I have this 12 days open, and I feel okay. I am doing something. It doesn't matter like if you are getting the result or not, but if you are putting in the
I love that. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I feel like that makes a lot of sense in my head because in my mind, the way I used to do applications was in terms of time process.
Yeah.
So for me, what you're referring to in terms of like you could just filter to a date and be like, okay, such and such Thursday I applied to 58 jobs.
Right.
For me, it was 2 hours on that same Thursday.
Right.
So really, it feels like we just have different ways of getting to that same final output, which is, as I said, accountability. Like, did I sit for 2 hours today and meet my goal of whatever, it can be number, it can be time, but it doesn't matter as long as you have a metric of, keeping yourself honest. Right. So what was it that made you consider a course in business analytics and move to the US for that?
Absolutely. Well, I would say like definitely service to that startup journey that definitely got that. Because while I was in my second startup, I basically started noticing that it's all game of data at the end of the day. If I am able to understand my logistics better, I have to do data analysis. If I want to understand if my customers are happy or they're satisfied with my product, I again have to do a ton of data analysis over there. I'm not really that fond of coding. I can manage it, but yeah, I'm definitely not the best coder.
Also, engineering
It was computer science, and I guess like just like most computer science students, yeah, I do prefer other fields as compared to coding. But I'm just like managing it. But if I want to build a life for me, I just thought okay, data analysis or business analysis in general would be the skill that I can do for 10 number of years. And then again go back to the basic science 10 and then scale from there. So that's like, okay, this is fun. I should do this. And I worked very hard for it. Thankfully, whatever hurdles were eventually passed, it could be for an international student, maybe for your education one. It's a big sum going from India to the US. Finally, came to Chicago, came to UIC. and had really fun time. But I was highly passionate about what I wanted to do. So not just keeping a year or a couple of years in my mind, but just keeping 10 years ahead of me. I decided for a job as a business analyst and extremely grateful and super happy that things are working.
That all makes a lot of sense. Really appreciate that overview. Can you walk us through your work experience in the US since you graduated, just to build or serve as context for the rest of the questions that will follow, this segment?
Absolutely. So currently working as a business analyst to, you can maybe call it a senior business analyst to simplify it. Working for a company called Healthcare Service Corporation, a great place. I would say very employee-driven organization where we are working at, where I'm working at. The most of the people that I work on a day-to-day basis, they have experience of like 25 plus years, at least 20 years, on an average, maybe 15 years of the in that very specific company. Just speaking about my work now, it is highly on the data visualization side. Power BI as a tool is something that I use on a day-to-day basis, and I really enjoy it. Like there's like a ton of different business problems that I have to answer with using Power BI and with data. So my usual day just looks like, okay, I get an ask from my manager, and it is basically, okay, he wants some metrics, some data. I have the data in front of me. I just have to go into the dashboard, make a few changes here and there. If the question or like the problem that I'm trying to solve is something like I haven't done before, there's a ton of brainstorming involved, figuring out different ways, coming up with different formulas, and then finally getting to the answer of it. But yeah, I would say I've been working with them for almost 10 months now, and it is majorly like working on data visualization and answering those key business questions that can help us take our business forward.
And before this, were you also working with data visualization stuff, or was this your job first after graduation?
Yeah, well, I was working definitely, but it was again at the very same time. It involved market research, it involved data analysis. So it was like a mix of everything.
More generalist.
Exactly. It was very general in that sense. But finally, working on this job, it is exactly like very niche, as we can say that, and very highly focused on a very particular skill, which is data visualization. So yeah, like that's what my day looks like now.
Awesome. And I know you covered the most critical tech skills that an analyst should aim to have, but kind of want to touch on what are some soft skills that also go along with, because you can build the greatest dashboard in the world.
Yeah.
And if you're not able to convey to your consumer what exactly is happening on each page,
Yeah.
that's pretty much. But arguably, maybe it's not a waste, but to even understand what you have to deliver and then go out and build that. Or if you're working with dedicated developers and you're kind of the middle point between the business and the developer, I know those soft skills go a really long way because I've had to learn or teach myself some on the job. So, yeah, I know for a fact that there'll be many out there, especially starting out their analyst journeys,
Right.
that would be really keen to know what are, some like skills that they can practice around soft skills that go a long way to be really good at their jobs.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that, Naman, because I would say soft skills matter equally, if not more, in some contexts. Because just to give an example over here, when I started in this particular role, so if I'm working in health insurance, it's huge, like the various terminologies that we use on a day-to-day basis, like the health infrastructure in the United States itself is so diverse. So having said that, I definitely had to understand the data that I'm working with. So for that, I personally, as a soft skill, had to learn to communicate, and that had to be on both ends. I had to communicate what I'm asking for to my manager, and at the very same time, I had to have the viewers to understand what he was trying to explain to me.
Absolutely.
And the second thing would be, I would say, stakeholder management as well, because at many times you would be involved in like with non-technical stakeholders. So the team that I'm involved with right now, most of the people on that team are project managers. Most of them have a background in PM, And having said that, they definitely can understand the technical side of things, but only if I can help them to.
Sure.
Because so when I was giving my first presentation, like maybe 8 or 9 months back, I remember the first question that I had for everyone on the call, for almost 12 members on the call, was so, hey guys, how many of you have used Power BI before? And I just only got a couple of raised hands. So I was like, okay, now that gives me a context of how much do I have to simplify my
Like how much you have to dumb it down.
exactly.
For lack of
Fair
a
enough,
better word.
fair enough, fair enough. And like if there is some other person who is having a skill, for example, you would be working on a different tech stack, maybe you'll have to do that for me. So I had to do the same thing for some other person, and that's how it started. So I would say communication as a soft skill highly important. Maybe being a good listener highly important. And at the very same time, stakeholder management, delegating your requirements, and understanding your data. So all of that definitely. Multiple skills, we can maybe give them different names, but communication as a whole, super important. Business analyst.
How did you upskill yourself specifically around Power BI, let's just say?
Absolutely. So I remember when I started on this job, I just had done a simple course during my master's degree, and I definitely had like a understanding of Power BI, but nowhere close to what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis right now. So there was surely a learning curve involved over there. What if some person wants to learn it and then excel at their job? I would say there were multiple resources involved. The first one was this website called Datacamp. That highly helped me. That highly helped me. They have multiple Power BI courses, and it really gives a very practical approach where understanding you complete. So they have like a inbuilt tool into their website, and understanding you complete a project or something, you won't be able to proceed to the next one. And the second thing was, I am like anyone who asked me this, I definitely tell them this resource, which is on YouTube. There's a guy called Alex, the analyst. He's very well, he's very active on LinkedIn. And he's such a he was data analyst, and then he started his YouTube journey. Super easy to learn from him, and highly practical skills that I use right now in the market. So that's the second resource.
Yeah, and I'll be linking both of those resources in the show notes for any listener that's interested to check that out. Are you a proponent more of somebody kind of laying out the foundation, doing foundational courses first, and then trying to build stuff? Or would you say that sometimes it can make sense to directly start building without even really knowing a lot of the foundation?
That's how I actually went through my entire journey.
Right.
So I would say maybe not a extended foundational course, but maybe you can do a short LinkedIn learning course for a couple of hours just to understand where what things are. And having done that, I would say just take a problem, not a complex one, but a basic one, just like you said. It could be a bar chart, or maybe a time analysis through a line chart.
Like a, what was it called? Tooltip. Something.
Exactly.
I love those, by the way. They're so it's more a multi-dimensional way to share information, but I like this.
Fair. So yeah, having said that, I personally would recommend, because when you for example you want to develop a bar chart, and you have some data, you go into Power BI, you build something, but you are not really actually getting to the final answer that you're looking for. You actually make your brain do some problem solving on its own, and that is actually it stays in your memory as compared to a YouTube video, or even for a data in that sense. So I would highly recommend the approach that you mentioned. That's something that I followed, and that actually helped me make a solid foundation going forward. So yes, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, and again, and to go back to your point, I still feel like the advice you share with students is still right, because they have time. It sounds like me and you, when we were having to learn this stuff, we didn't have that time to go and do those foundational stuff. So we kind of got forced to jump in the deep end, so to speak. But I guess I just want to call out that your advice still pretty much tracks for somebody that has time, such as a student. So I guess kind of continuing on that visualization kind of deep dive, what according to you makes a good dashboard?
Wow. That's definitely another good question. So I can say multiple things that
I acknowledge that this is an incredibly layered and tough question to answer, but
having said that, okay, let's say that I had asked maybe day before yesterday. There are 3 points that I would highly want to be emphasizing on. The first one would be start with a story. Just digressing a little bit, I personally believe that humans in general, we are great storytellers. For example, maybe 10,000 years ago, we were in a cave, we were drawing cave paintings, but we were just trying to say a story over there. Cut to right now, we are watching some high action Hollywood movies, like Marvel, Avengers, and all of that. But that is a form of storytelling as well. So, coming back to the dashboard, I would say just start with the story in mind. What is it that you are trying to explain from an end-to-end basis? And so, having said that, you can maybe start with the key metrics on the first page. And then take it forward from maybe with a bar chart on a graph or like all of those things.
When you say metric, are you referring to what questions you're trying to answer?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Like for example, if I just want to see the sales in the last quarter, that is the question, and then we can answer it with we can basically call like a KPI. So whatever KPIs we can include on the first page, that's how I basically start. Even just taking a step before that, I always keep in mind the audience that I'm going to be showing my dashboard to. For example, if it is for a senior leadership, say maybe senior vice president, he doesn't have like a lot of time on his hands. So I would actually want to restrict the dashboard to maybe 3 or 4 slides. If it is for my manager, maybe 7 or 8 slides. And maybe if it's for like a team meeting or general discussion, more than that. Then I can have whatever you want the number for that. But yeah, just start with a story in mind of how you want to layer it, of how it will progress, and finally what you would want to make sure that your audience remembers after your dashboard has been seen end to end. So that's the first part. The second key point that I always try to remember is basically what I briefly touched upon is the KPIs or the information that we would be having. I have seen that, and this was a mistake which I am also a culprit of. Initially, I was adding everything into the very same dashboard, but I just realized that that's not the best approach. At times, too much of information can actually make your audience like, okay, overwhelmed. I absolutely. And so it's big time that I realized, okay, we can just have this many visuals on a specific on a specific slide and just take it from there. So, and third point is again, I've seen this multiple times. It usually used to happen in college projects, but I've seen that carry over in my work life as well. Multiple teams that I was involved with, when I was maybe learning from them or just seeing their work in general when I started, I just noticed that people were like preferring style over the content. So it was like they are having like too many colors within a single dashboard, and it is like yeah, they're having a fancy chart, but you are not really able to grasp okay, and you are just looking at it. So again, it is a feeling of overwhelming as well. If not too much information, but through too much colors or too much styling kind of that stuff. So I would just say, why do we want to complicate things? Just if we can get that story in a simple way. So that would be my third point. So any time that I have requirement like delegated to me, this is basically what my mind goes to. Focus on the story, focus on the information, and focus on the style or the feel or look and feel of it as well. And I feel that's the anyone can get a starting point into developing a good visualization.
Amazing. That's such a helpful framework, not only to conceptualize, but also to remember, given there's 3 simple bullets there.
Yeah.
Continuing on that same kind of path, are you a proponent of So like I see a lot of shade thrown against stuff like pie charts, for instance. So like, I don't know. I'm sure you must have seen that, but like, there's so many blog articles saying that no matter what you do not use pie charts. They're the worst. Or like what's the other one called? Where it's like
What's your that is a gate chart.
gate chart. Yeah. So so first of all, when I see all of that, I'm like, is this just a joke? Like, is it generally supposed to be funny, or is this like actual advice? So I figured I'd ask somebody that does.
Absolutely.
What's your take on that type of?
Well, the way that I would answer it is actually depends upon the data that we are trying to see out there. I personally just to take my take on it, I have heard like or I've actually seen countless LinkedIn posts where people are like you have to boycott pie chart. I'm like there are better things to boycott in life. Why would you want to boycott a pie chart?
It just feels silly.
Exactly. I mean, it's like you are discriminating against a chart. Like, where have we come to as a civilization at this point? But yeah, like that's what I hear as well most of the time. But I would say it actually really depends upon being honest with your work and what kind of data you're dealing with. For example, if I'm dealing with percentages, what percentage of say of a department is like, for example, I have 5 different departments. I just want to see what percentage is given to each one. I would definitely go for a pie chart. I wouldn't go for not maybe a donut chart in that sense, but I wouldn't want to go for a line chart to say that kind of data.
Or it's just usage depends what we are trying to answer at much time. Awesome. And then I guess on the other side of the spectrum, what are some underrated types of visuals that you really enjoy working with that you feel like aren't used enough in your lineup?
Absolutely. I would say donut charts is one which I really enjoy with. Like it's definitely very similar to a pie chart, but it just makes us feel like how the data is being segregated doesn't take a lot of your screen space. Not too many colors, but at the same time tells the story. So donut chart would be one which I really enjoy working with. Something which I find very cool is the gauge chart that we just spoke about. You can really call it like looks like a speedometer or anything, but that is something which I use on a day-to-day basis to track the KPI that I'm working with. So we have a KPI called average cycle time, which is basically how much time the end-to-end request took from to complete. So if the time is beyond a certain KPI, so I just draw a red line on the gauge, and if it is over that limit, then we know we have to bucket things up and we have to do something. If it is beyond, if it is less than that, we are doing good. So I feel that is a highly useful visualization that we can develop. So I guess just at the top of my mind, those are the two. But like yeah, we have so many custom visuals that we can use. Maybe three maps at point of time as well. It's very like very less used right now, I feel in general, but I feel it is again something which I have been finding very useful in my work. So I guess maybe those sheets.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll have to look at exactly how tree maps work. But can you talk us through your journey of, I guess, clearly using all of this expertise that you've accumulated and then becoming a top voice on LinkedIn? Because I know it's like I'm not actually even sure how that works, but it's really cool. And I'm sure it has had its benefits. So can you go over how that whole thing, like how does one become a top voice?
100%. So I feel like I personally was introduced to the top voice like just less than 6 months ago. And I was like, man, this is just phenomenal. Like this new feature on LinkedIn. So, okay, just to like drill it down what the top voices is. Basically, LinkedIn has two different top voices. The one, just to like simplify, just like the blue icon, like the blue top voice that you see, I guess that is just given out by LinkedIn to highly influential people or like contributors on LinkedIn. So I guess we don't have any control over that. I guess we can get that.
Okay, I see.
But the one that I was fortunate to get is basically a communicate top voice, and I got it for data visualization. And how to get that? The the answer to that would be, I feel I was like invited by LinkedIn to answer specific data visualization related questions.
Cool.
And I don't think it is like a lot, like the entry barrier is a lot. I feel most of us who are active on LinkedIn or are putting our posts around data visualization or these kind of skills, LinkedIn would eventually invite you to answer community questions based on that. And once we keep answering those questions, you have the rank like, okay, this is how much you are trending based upon all of the people who are answering those questions. And so people get the chance to go and like your contributions, people get to comment on them, people, if they are finding it useful, you would be upvoted. And I feel if you are in the top 5% or top 3%, depending on what the skill is, LinkedIn will then give you and a top voice badge. So that's how to get it basically. How it has been useful, it has been truly phenomenal in my LinkedIn journey. I always wanted to have a presence on LinkedIn, but I tried it before. It was very horrible what I was doing back then. But eventually, the top voice gave me credibility that okay, you can maybe follow this person. He has good views on this. And when I started that, when I started getting some traction because of that, I then pivoted my approach on LinkedIn, where I was just basically previously posting things that were important to me, while this time I was actually posting things that were important or valuable for the people, just like how we spoke about how to navigate the job search or the skills required for business analysts or what my day looks like. So that's what I started posting. And people started relating to that. People found it valuable, and it actually more than the gratification on social media. It actually really helps me see with a smile on my face. Okay, I am actually making someone's day better. If someone is going through bad time, maybe they find it inspirational or they want to achieve something in the future. So it's super gratifying in that sense. But yeah, that's how I got the top voice, how I navigated that. Then the content which you eventually followed, it has been phenomenal. I'm super grateful for that specific.
That's awesome. I guess my favorite thing about what you just laid out is that it's not just, kind of like buying a verification badge on Instagram where you just pay money and you get a view. This, the community needs to have, back somebody that gets that. So, you can trust somebody that has a top voice around various topics, which is really relevant actually. But the fact that they have that means that they didn't just throw money at it and they were actually, chosen in a way almost. So that's really helpful. Yeah, I have no idea how any of that worked, but that's super awesome. So really the last question I had for you was in with generative AI now becoming a thing and Copilot being
Tell me about it.
yeah, coupled into all really Microsoft products, Power BI included, how do you see, say somebody is, graduating from a master's in business analytics degree 6 months from now.
Yeah.
They have those 6 months to potentially, and there's only so many hours in a day, so you can either do things that we've been doing forever, or you can start doing Copilot specific or generative AI specific skills around Power BI or really just any business analyst oriented positions to kind of set yourself apart. So first, two-part question. First is that something that you would recommend the student or professional looking to break into analyst roles? Should they be looking at that type of stuff?
Yeah.
And second part is, if so, what would be the best ways or any guardrails that you can suggest around them trying to do this? Because a lot of times it just happens that if you're having AI do everything, you're not learning yourself anything. You have no idea how actually to write a measure or to write tax code to do a certain thing, because AI wrote that for you. So how does one go about balancing the two, if at all those are things that need to be balanced?
I would actually would want to answer this question. Okay, just before I can even do that, I'll just say how I approach this is not just thinking maybe 1 or 2 years down the line by keeping that next 10, 15, or even 50 years for that matter. So it's eventually like, yeah, I guess we all know that AI is going to be taking over, and then they are going to be ruling over us, and we are going to be the slaves. But I'm just kidding about that. But in like a very fair context, I do feel like AI can be highly useful. It just depends upon how we approach that equation. So I would just say don't shy away from it. If you are hearing all of these talks about AI, it is definitely a tool that you can use to make your work better. I'm a huge believer of that. And I don't guess that it's going to be taking away everyone's job. It is actually only helping us make our jobs even more easier and even more efficient for that matter. So that's like in general what I think about that. Now, just coming to both of those questions, I would say definitely have emphasis on that. That have keep it in mind. I personally feel that it's like almost too early. Like we are almost at that stage that yeah, it is going to be like used everywhere.
Yeah.
But I feel just to give a timeline on that, it might take maybe 3 or 4 more years for that
That's
to
fair.
happen.
Yeah, that's probably
Yeah, but having said that, yeah, at least if we can start early that adoption, we would obviously have the leverage going forward. So, just coming to my work, one as a business analyst in general who's working with Power BI, Power BI has launched the Power BI Copilot. I did not have a chance to implement it, like, but definitely got a chance to learn about it. So our organization as a whole, it is highly like it is emphasizing on automation and leveraging AI and like yeah, because that's the future. So I would highly recommend like if anyone is starting in this field, learn about Power BI Copilot. What I have learned about so far, this super fun, so cool to use. What I'm doing, what my manager is asking me to do, okay, so I want this. I can directly type it into it is basically like a chat GPT of that job and it processes natural language and you can basically it will come up with the entire dashboard for you. Having said that, it is not going to be the most perfect or
Yeah, you would probably have to edit it.
everything. We have to tailor it.
It's just like that first draft.
Fair. It is like a full draft. Very on point with that. And having said that, we can just like then use that first draft because if give and take, it is actually reducing 50% of your manual effort. You are tracking all the measures and creating the graph. You already have it in front of you. And then we can take from there. Then the machine has done its part. Then we can come and we can take it. So I guess that's one feature that we can use. The second one, I also was realizing that this is happening with Google as well, but or WhatsApp or all of these platforms for like a CV, if we can say. But Copilot also has a thing where it will actually understand your visualization style and it will then give you recommendations. So
That's really cool.
yeah, and so the thing that you are about to be doing, you already have in front of you. So that's again highly efficient. It is helping us go ahead in that.
Probably stuff around formatting as well. Like we waste so much time with brand colors and search.
Exactly.
It would probably already be out of the box.
Exactly.
So that's actually pretty cool. Yeah, I guess what you're laying out, the quote that it brings to my mind is your job, or you will not be replaced by AI, but probably by somebody that uses AI.
Exactly.
I don't know. I still have mixed feelings about the how generalizable it makes it sound. It's probably not to that extent, but I do think at least a part of that is, probably true. So, yeah, but I guess, yeah, everything else that you said makes total sense. Yeah, those are really all the questions I had. So, thank you so much for taking the time today. I just want to call out one thing that I noticed throughout our conversation. It sounded like most people I talk to, myself included, not to say I talk to myself, but you know what I mean. In terms of, when you look at the future or when you think about the future, most people are just like, this year or next month or whatever. Something that stuck out to me about you was you always made it a point to be looking or thinking 5, 10 years into the future. I think that's pretty incredible because, again, mostly because I've never heard anybody do that, but also because the more I think about it, it feels like such a smart way to be thinking about things in general.
Fair.
Because so often we're so engrossed in like the micro the microness of time. That's not a word, but I'm going to stick with it.
Yes.
That we forget, the big picture and we lose sight of what a decision that we take will do for us 10 years later because we're so laser focused on the 1 year.
Absolutely.
And often those are very different things.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to call that out. I think that's really cool. And yeah, I hope you continue to, make such a positive difference that you have been doing on LinkedIn, being open to conversations such as these.
If I'm sorry to interrupt on this, but if I can just say that I don't know if this was starting on the podcast before or not, but I would actually want to take just one question for on the opposite end, and because I feel that could be again highly useful for
That's
investors.
awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah. Before we started the podcast, we just had a very short conversation about your interest in podcasting and like just things in general. So the question for Naman over here would be, if we can just lay it out for your viewers, how did that interest build in, and what were the skills that you developed throughout that journey, throughout this conversation that we're having right now. And if someone was to actually get into podcasting or maybe just life in general, what are the skills that you picked up would be beneficial for them to maybe start their journey on their own?
I love that. Yeah, how the tables turn, right?
Yes.
And also kind of getting a flavor of how my guests feel when I drop 3 questions on them at the same time. So appreciate all of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So like happy to talk about that. I guess what prompted this really was basically a long-term obsession with YouTube. I just spent ungodly amounts of time on YouTube just looking at. Honestly, it's embarrassing to talk about, but have you ever seen those like video essays about stuff? Like it'll be about random games that I have played in high school. Then they'll be just going into extremely detailed discussions around characters, why they were doing things, blah, blah, blah. But and like all TV shows, Breaking Bad.
Breaking things down.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, just like I would any day watch that over whatever trending Netflix show there is at any given point of time forever, like over the past 5 years, pretty much. So it's always that idea of, switching from consumer to creator. It really is the backbone of like my biggest motivation around this. And specifically, the straw that broke the canvas back was I follow a creator. He's called Leon Rush.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like some random commentary guy.
Yeah.
But he put out a video talking about how the world would undergo zero change if you, which is somebody that is on the fence of being a creator, finally becomes a creator.
Right.
He was like, literally nobody cares.
Right.
The only person that benefits is you and potentially people that you're trying to, help. It's called the spotlight effect. We all go through this. We always feel like there's this giant spotlight on us that's, taken note of our every move.
Yeah.
That's just not true. Nobody literally cares. Like since I've started now to your other points, like I'm 11 episodes in as of this day of recording.
Yeah.
Episode 12 will drop later today.
Right.
Still have a lot of work to do on that. But honestly, the things I've learned is the biggest by far is really just like managing my time and like my schedule, because obviously I have a full-time job. This is not something I do full-time. So it's been really challenging, but in a fun way to do all of the things that I was doing before April this year. That's when the podcast started.
Right.
Still continuing to do those, and on top of that, also be doing stuff around, the podcast. So that's the biggest thing. And the second would be the creativity aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
I have sunk an ungodly number of hours in designing just thumbnails for YouTube. And I will continue to do more of that because I just love it. It's just, there's just that feeling of when it clicks, when you know you have a good thumbnail.
Right.
And again, I do not have good thumbnails. I want to call that out.
I've seen a few good ones. That would be honest. Yeah, but please.
Yeah. So, but I guess what I'm getting at is even when I'm done and like when I feel good, it's because I've reached the limit of my skill barrier. It's not because of that. Like, oh, that's probably fine. I'm going to go with that.
Thanks.
I'm doing the absolute best that I can at any given point, while I guess also trying to upskill myself. Same applies for like the video editing, etc. Blah blah. I mean, I could go on, but really, the effects I've just been blown away by how positively this whole thing has affected my life. And I'm not even referring to the like YouTube having 120 subscribers on YouTube. It's irrelevant, really, is what it was. I'm like the real good benefits have come outside of that in like my daily life. So,
But just the process of it, you are definitely like seeing a different change throughout your life.
yeah, exactly. Because that's the thing. Like, it makes a discipline. Now I do not have a choice but to be up at 6 every day.
Wow.
Like, it's not up. I don't get to decide that. I have to. It's those like I choose it.
And that's fantastic.
And like, yeah, and again, like the one metric I had for success, because I was like, what is my metric for success? I would recommend anybody considering to also have that. My metric for success is not missing an upload. That's it. I don't care if 2 people watch it, that's fine. My failure metric is if there is no upload on a website. That's failure.
I love that.
So, and but it cuts both ways because good either way. If I upload, I'm good. That's all I'm optimizing for. That's all I'm solving for. Everything else is a bonus.
Right.
So, it's a really good question. I've honestly never, had the chance to talk about this. But hopefully, this isn't too much of a tangent, and it remains to be seen how much of this I will leave in versus cut out. Really appreciate you being so, enthusiastic about this. And I was sharing this with you earlier, but normally when I reach out to somebody, then I'll have like my cold DM prepared and whatnot. And with you, it was literally like you were actually interested. It wasn't something I had to run after you for. You were just like, this is cool. I like it. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
And I just think that's so commendable.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just had like the best time over here, and yeah, I hope that my biggest win with this is like meeting a new friend, and this is obviously the entire experience of it. I got to learn so much from you, but even more than that, my biggest win would be that people find this useful, even if just a few people, even if one person can actually benefit from this, that would make my day or my month in general. But yeah, I just hope this was useful, and whoever is watching this, you got this. Just keep going. Thank you so much, guys.
That brings us to the end of episode 15 of the Ready Set Do podcast. Thank you for sharing these conversations with those that continue to benefit from them. If you benefited from this discussion, the best way to support this podcast is by subscribing to my YouTube channel and leaving me up to a 5-star rating on Spotify. New episodes every Wednesday. Catch you all in the next one.